Okay, so I want to start this out with a little bit of a warning. So Animal Jam is amazing. Our community is amazing. That's not the warning, right? These are the good kids. We're not going to talk about the good stuff. We're going to talk about moderation, and we're going to talk about examples of offensive behavior. I've heard some pretty crude talk in some of the sessions already, so I think you guys will be okay. But if that bothers you, you might want to do something else. So who am I, real quick? Check out those transitions. Did you see that? Heck yeah. Okay, so anyway, I got to get the dumb ones out of the way, right? So I'm Paul Milham. I work at WildWorks, and I work on the tools and services that help keep our kids safe. So I'm the technology side of our live ops. And yeah, Animal Jam, like the 5-second pitch I give for it is usually, think World of Warcraft for preteen girls. So, okay. So what are we actually going to talk about? Well, we'll talk about the techniques we use at WildWorks for COPPA. We'll talk about how we protect our brand. And we're going to talk about player safety. So first of all, what needs moderation? I think that's the most important thing, right? And it's basically anything your user generates, okay, especially if it's kids. Anything they put into the game needs to be moderated. So in our case, that's chat. Okay, we don't want people saying stuff like this, right? Okay, so that's a good one. Or usernames like yousuck77, okay? Or user-generated art. This is a good one. Check it out. Don't look at your laptops. Look at this. It's really cool. Bam. Okay. So we don't want stuff like this in our game, right? It's just, Animal Jam is not about like torturing and murdering Barney, okay? But how much protection do we really need? Well, there are hard requirements, and those are, you know, COPPA, COPPA, or GDPR, right? These are things like there's not any wiggle room for you as an organization to decide what this means to you. These are laws, you have to abide by them. But there are also soft requirements like brand protection. You know, how much of a halo does your brand need? And player safety, like what does that even mean to your organization, right? So let's talk about COPPA and GDPR real quick. Okay, so you don't have to do this by yourself. I think that's a really comforting thing, and you shouldn't. So first of all, work with your internal resources. Make sure you're discussing this as a team. Make sure you're talking with everyone about what's going into your game, what kind of data you're collecting, all that stuff. Discuss it. Not just as a community team, not just as a tech team. This should be a discussion you have together, so it's comprehensive. Okay, I'm not a lawyer, okay? I don't speak legalese either. That is not English. I don't know what kind of language lawyers speak, but it's totally, it's crazy. But anyway, even if you understand what's going on there, the interpretation in these laws is going to vary. I'm not discouraging you from reading the laws or doing your own investigation. You should definitely do that. You should try to understand what's going on and what the requirements are. But, you know, I mean, there are a lot of lawyers out there for a reason, right? And this is one thing I want to stress. So COPPA has these blessed organizations. They can provide a safe harbor. You should definitely look into one of these programs. There's a lot of resources on the FTC website. I mean, even really good stuff, like you can go and watch little videos and people smile at you and tell you what to do. But you want to look at this list of safe harbor organizations, because pretty much if you go through them, you get their approval, their seal of approval, you're kind of good to go. Okay, they'll hold your hand and help you do it. And they're not super expensive or anything like this. I really can't recommend this enough. Okay, so what about brand player protection? Kind of depends on your game. I mean, how much interaction is really in your game? And what are the risks? So, I mean, are you gonna have like players freaking out, getting angry at you? That's a risk. They can, you know, leave your game and then you're not making money off of them. But you need to decide what the actual risks for your game are. And this is just really an individual call as your organization, how much you want to protect your brand. But number one at Animal Jam, what we think about is actual safety. So COPPA is kind of a minimum level. It's a legal, you know, it's a legal bar that you have to meet. But think about if you're a parent, okay, and your kid is playing your game, what experience do you want her to have? What should she experience as she's playing your game? I think when you use that mindset, your questions and your requirements kind of change as you think about safety. Okay, so this comes up a lot, right? So how much is this going to cost? Okay. These are funny, guys. Laugh at these gifts, okay? So these is potentially a lot of money, right? And where does that money come from? Well, it comes from humans babysitting all these players, right? Like, making sure what they're doing is the right thing and they're not being jerks to each other. And so as we talk about moderation scaling, I'm referring in a lot of ways is how do we make that financially scale? The first thing I want to talk about is just using automation, all right? So computers, they work for cheap. They don't complain unless like, a stack trace is a complaint. I don't know. But they don't have to sleep. They're 100% reliable, right? They don't make mistakes. Okay. That's funny because Bender is the worst computer in the world. Okay. Anyway, use computers whenever you can. Another thing that we can do with this is there's a lot of third-party tools out there that are actually really good. So pick a good filter. I think a lot of times people think about just like a whitelist or a blacklist when you're talking filters. They're much more advanced than that. A lot of these third parties can pick out, context and subjects, and they can rate risk, things like that. And so you really want to do something with that. One, because it's going to be a lot cheaper than having a human read this chat, right? If you have a popular game, it's not even feasible to have somebody read it, Animal Jam has like tens of millions of messages sent every day. And I don't know how many times you want to read these little conversations, or even could pay someone to do that, right? The other good thing about a filter is it can provide in the instant education. So let's say somebody's talking about something inappropriate for your game. Right then, you can send a contextual message that instructs the user. These are kids still, right? They're going to push boundaries. They're going to test things. And maybe they don't even know what they're doing is inappropriate. But if you have something that can instantly respond to what they're doing, that's a great educational opportunity right there. But the bottom message is just always be looking for things that computers can be doing. Whenever you have a requirement come up, think of how a computer might be able to do this for you. That said, don't go all the way to the other side and think, let's do 100% automation. I promise if you do that, your game will not be safe. This is not going to be a healthy place. The software just isn't advanced enough right now. So specifically, I want to talk about some of the challenges we faced in Animal Jam. The first one is usernames. So why do we worry about usernames? Why do we care what's in them? Well, for COPPA compliance, one, they can contain personal information, and you need to make a good faith effort to remove personal information from your game. And so before a username is ever displayed in the game, we make sure that it's an okay username to display. It doesn't contain anything with personal information, or it's anything offensive or meant to hurt another user. So it's related to safety as well. So let's look at some fancy usernames here. Okay, that's one. That's two. Okay, so we got some usernames here, right? These are all really great usernames. Unfortunately, these are not real usernames. I'm not exposing any users here, but unfortunately, this is modeled after real data. Okay, so I don't know if you see a pattern in those usernames or not, right? I mean, there might be one, but we're having a human look at every one of these. Let's look at some more. Okay. So again, there's another pattern here. It's not as blatant and as stupid as the last one, but there's another pattern going on here with personal information in these names. This is very, very common when kids create accounts. They'll just put their first and last name in, and they don't realize that it's a danger to expose their personal information. So this is expensive when you have people look at every single one of these, right? I mean, it takes a lot of time, and it's got to be pretty mind-numbing too. So maybe just for their sake, you want to automate this. So a couple of things we did is we added a PII auto search. And basically what this amounts to is just web scraping for any personal information that might be associated with that username. Some really good tells are like Facebook. If Facebook is the first thing that pops up, you've probably got like a first name and last name. Your third-party filters should also be doing things like checking against census data for very likely first and last name combinations. So there's a lot you can do there. Another thing we did is auto moderation. Okay, this was really cool. So we take a username and we noticed a lot of patterns in it, right? So when you moderate a name, I don't really care that this 892 is at the end. You know, if it's there are certain numbers that can be dangerous. You know, certain numbers have bad connotations, or it could be a phone number or something like that. But I mean, a short one like this, there's no personal information that's possible in just a few digits like this. And so we can go ahead and we just strip them, okay? So we take all of these names and we do things like repeated characters. We go ahead and strip those out, just compress them down. We strip out numbers. And you can compress all of these names down into these shorter names. And there's a very high likelihood, if you've got a lot of users, you've already looked at I stink like turds, right? So, I mean, you already know that's not a name you want in your game. And these other permutations, they're the same thing. You know, there's a few extra characters, there's some numbers, they're the same thing though. So why spend human time remoderating these things? So we don't, and we just have a computer reapply it. Okay, so just at the data I looked at, Michael Jackson or some permutation of that was submitted 162 times to our game. There's not a real need for, you know, a human to go through and disapprove Michael Jackson 2, Michael Jackson 5, you know, 162 times. Or Poop Man. We don't want Poop Man in the game, right? And so let's just go ahead and deny him every time that happens. And this is actually a better experience for the user, too. So when a user signs up, they're not all bad. The vast majority of names we get are fine. But we can go ahead and just auto-approve that name or auto-deny that game. And then we just prompt the user to rename their account. So this is big, okay? Well, we have a lot of users, 85 million or something registered users, something like that. And so, you know, we get a lot of these name permutations, but 50% reduction, right? 50% of what at the time our mods was spending on this. This is a lot of money. Okay, I don't know, I was pretty excited. Okay, another issue we get is just chat. And chat, most of the stuff that happens in the game is totally fine. It's great. It's children role-playing. It's using Animal Jam for what it should be used for. But we have like these problem users that we need to look out for because they bring the experience down for a lot of other people. And so we've dedicated workflows, and these are really like keyword searches combined with risk. And, you know, we use a few indicators to find them. But we want to find anyone sharing personally identifiable information. Certainly any suicide or self-harm is a high priority. Again, this isn't something that's like COPPA says you have to do this. It's just Animal Jam is a safe place. We want parents to understand that it's safe, and we believe it should be a safe place, so we watch out for these things. Current events happen a lot, and so these are just the most recent ones that I saw that our community moderators were looking out for. I have no idea what Blue Whale and Logan Paul are, but I don't know what they are. Anyway, but they're looking out for them, okay? Scamming, so this is like kids trying to convince other kids to give them their password, things like that. Bad dens, we have dens. These are like personal virtual spaces that the children can decorate. And so stripe clubs, I don't know if that immediately means anything to you, but we obviously don't let people say strip club in our game, so they say stripe club sometimes. So anyway, so they want to role play and build a narrative around these undesirable themes sometimes, and so we need to watch out for them. Or cybersex, just things we don't want going on in our game, right? So this is actually really interesting. As someone like, if you're interested in language, I think this is a super interesting thing to look at, but I'm dubbing this Animal Jamese. So it's like kind of like a new language. Okay, so you can't, it's hard to like attack people in the game because we have pretty good filters. But people might say, what a beach, right? Or if you look at this one, fun unicorn cat, kitty you. Okay, these are kids, but you can see that the capital letters spell F-U-C-K, right? Or they might try to share PII, personally identifiable information. Can you talk on Sky? So can you talk on Skype, right? Want to know my user for the White Ghost app? Okay, you can probably guess what that is. But these are creative ways to get around our moderation system. Same with scamming. You know, they have replacement words for password, pause, sexting, want to have a bay, put your snake in my bush. Okay, now these, they sound kind of hilarious, but I mean, yeah, they're trying to get around our filters. The other thing about this is it's always changing. So these phrases probably won't even be a thing next month. It's always changing, and we need the mods to stay on top of this by regularly updating the filters and watching what's going on in game. Okay, this is really busy. Okay, also, if you play Animal Jam, please don't do this. Please stop anyone that does. So another interesting thing that I saw is signaling. So sometimes the users know that we have access to their chat history, and they don't want to leave a trail. And so they'll do things like emote in certain orders, and that means meet me on Twitch and stuff like that. This is kind of an open question, but people try to get around and go to unmoderated channels. That's a challenge. Okay, what about art? So art automation, this is really hard. We tried a few AI-based approaches, and we didn't have much success for them. Most of them are geared towards actual pornographic images. They're pretty good at detecting those. But we have the equivalent of MS Paint art being uploaded in our game, right? And it isn't so good at detecting undesirable images with that. That said, if you know someone that works at Amazon and Google, something like that, and they're convinced that they can handle this, I would love to talk to them. So what we ended up doing is we look for near exact matches. And basically what we do is when someone uploads an image, we scale it way down, like it's super tiny, like 32 by 32 pixels. And then we see if that scaled down image matches anything else. So this scaling is fine-grained enough that we can catch anything like if somebody uploads a perfectly fine image and it gets approved and then they draw a little swastika in the corner or something like that. So this will catch that. But any duplicate images, we can just go ahead and auto-approve. It's not 50%, it was more like 3% that we're automatically moderating this way. So art remains expensive for us to moderate. There are a lot of concerns. Is there any PII? A lot of time artists will sign their name. This is really common. They'll use their first name or last name when they sign the image. And also kids will upload photos that they've taken. They'll like draw something with pencil and paper and take a photo. You need to make sure you're stripping any metadata out of that stuff because it can have geotagging or other information that could identify the child in there. So make sure you watch out for that. Offensive imagery. Also, don't rely on a proprietary format as a security layer. So we had our own format, and somebody wrote this custom program called AJ Art Uploader, and it basically allowed them to do a couple of things. They could alter any art, or they could duplicate any art in the game. And this was kind of funny. We actually got a letter from the BBB because someone complained about us that their artwork was being compromised in Animal Jam, which I thought was pretty funny. I forget how many damages they asserted, but any symbols, just anything controversial. And a lot of times this isn't bad things. These are good things that these kids are talking about. It's just your virtual world is not the place to have those conversations. So yeah. So like for this one, for example, this is a great image, but you can see under the bamboo there, the child signed her name, and then there was a DeviantArt username under there. So that's something you have to watch out for. This, smile, maybe not, I don't know, you decide. But this is a tricky problem, right? Okay, next, we're gonna talk about Wonder Pets. No, we're not. Okay, so, so work with your programmers. If you're a community manager, make sure you're working with your programmers. Programmers are gonna have an eye for automation. They're always thinking about how a computer can solve this problem. They should understand your workflows, okay? Make sure that they're invested in your process. We recently started working a lot closer with our community team, and the results have been very, very good. Also, developers, make sure you're working with your community team. You also need to be invested in this process. The community team knows what's best for the community, and they know what's best for the game, really. So, teamwork, okay? This is going to give you the best outcome for your players and your business. So this is just kind of an aside, but I think this could be a really big deal soon, right? Artificial intelligence could solve a lot of these problems for us, cheaply, hopefully. AI can understand conversations, art. It's getting a lot better. And so I hope to see some breakthroughs with this soon. Maybe we can get something really good out of it. We'll see. But it could be a huge cost reduction. So this is something to keep an eye on. This could be a big deal in the future. And hopefully these third parties that you're working with are going to be able to integrate this for you as well. Okay, so I wanted to thank a few people. First, Carter from our community team is amazing. He heads up the community team, and he helped me put this presentation together. Alana as well helped me research some of the trends in Animal Jam. Just the whole community team is great. Thank you to my boss, who is sitting right there. So he encouraged me to come and present at Casual Connect. But really, thank you to Animal Jam. You know, if you can go to work every day, work on something you believe in, work on something you think has value, and have a good time doing it, that's a good position to be in. So, you know, I'm thankful that I have this opportunity. And there goes my community, my info.